Turbo manifolds. Can you put it down?
I've heard of a couple of people using truck manifolds, and I think they re-drill the heads and then flip them around. But I also know of a company that makes an adapter flange, and you can use a forward-facing LS manifold, 4 turbos, and have them mounted forward. So you put the adapters on the heads, bolt the headers to it, and then it's forward-facing. Now, fit-wise, I can't tell you. You know, that's for fitting. That's on.
If you're putting turbos on it, there's a sensor involved.
Stuff is going to get cut.
And since you wrote that story, I think, is there anything we've done or anything we've learned since then that is new info?
There's a lot of no, I mean, there were things, I had to rush mine to get it done. I had to go back and adjust a few things. I mean, you drive by wire, you've got no throttle pressure for the frame, so I had to go to manual valve body. But now, I mean, it's the single best thing I've done to a car. There's been no downside. And the car is mostly original paint with the beat up on hot rod, but almost every show I go to, as soon as the hood goes up, you're walking by, you do that. With the hood down, it's still the same old car, except better in every way.
Could you guys use the mic? Because this guy yammers down here on the speaker, I can't hear.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
I was done.
Oh, okay.
I should sit in the audience, because these guys know way more than I do.
Yes.
Has anyone ever done this manual transmission and
I haven't. That's no other reason than the fact that my truck was automatic to begin with. There's no reason you can't. It's a flex plate, or a flat wheel.
Quick time makes a bell house.
Yes. I know there is actually somebody I know that has a Dakota with a Hellcat in it, and they're running a T56. So it is doable. It's a bell housing and a flywheel, and really that's it. What application are you looking at?
I'm just an older, 69, just an older car.
Okay, yeah, it's just a bell housing, and I think he used a starter from a 96 Ram.
Well, it all depends on what you want to use. Because I've gone back and forth between the Magnum Ram starter. So basically, any in the 90s, I've had that in them. The starter I have in that car now is the truck stick starter, which you have to trim 2 little mounts on the engine block, but it. But you got to trim 2 little bumps on the side of the oil pan rail. You can trim them up, and you can get that starter right in there. It is tiny. I mean,
You need a small block though.
yeah, small block bell housing. Yes. So.
Usually your R-rated intake manifold, what are you doing with this?
I actually run on, I have to, here's a stipulation with this. 2003 to 2008, 5.7 liter, and 6.1, all use the same 32 tooth. It's a 32 tooth tone wheel. I use a MSD Hemi 6 on both of the cars that I have out there to run the ignition. All it does is a standalone ignition. Keep in mind, there is no knock detection. The motors don't like detonation, so I usually run I'll run the timing a little low, no matter what, like I said, 22 degrees really anyway. So, I mean, I'll run maybe 20, 21, just to try to keep that a little bit in reserve. But I haven't had any problems with either car. So, I've been running, I think Pop's car it'll actually tell you on the screen when you plug into it, if you plug your laptop in, how many hours are on the engines or on the units that were in there. I think Pop's only got like 50 hours or so on his. I think I put that box in that car in 2007. I think that's up to like 450 hours, I think, if memory serves me. So they've been rock solid. I haven't had a single issue with either one of them. Now, once you get to 2009 and up, 5.7 liter, they run a finer tooth tone wheel. and also they're VVT engines. So things become a little bit more complicated because now if you want to go old school and you want to lock everything out, there's just more to do. So you would have to, the biggest issue is the unit to run the engine as a standalone EFI, or standalone ignition. Because I've known people to pop the crank out of it, take the tone ring, the fine-tooth tone ring off, through the course tone ring on. The only issue that comes along with that is cast cranks use a 3-bolt tone wheel. Nobody makes them. The forged cranks, so the 6.4, the 6.1 liter, they all use a 4-bolt tone ring. So those you can buy aftermarket. But the issue that comes along with that now is the 4-bolt tone rings you can buy aftermarket are balanced differently than the 6.1 tone wheel was. So if you put it on, it comes, like I said, things start to get a little bit more intricate and involved when you start swapping stuff around. Now, I have heard of, and I haven't tried it yet, I have one at home. Eventually I'll get around to it, it just takes me time. But I have a fast XIM, from what I have read, can be run, not the XFI. So in other words, not the whole system for the EFI and the ignition. Just the ignition controller can be adapted to work with the finer tooth wheel, but you still have to lock the VVT. In other words, so you still have to do that. Again, once you get past that 2008 on a 5.7 and anything in a 6.4s, you end up into more stuff that gets a little bit more intricate. And even with that 2013, they changed the tone wheel a little bit more. So they use a different sensor, and the sensor for that doesn't work this way. It goes one way, but not the other. Like I said, it gets a little bit. Christine would know more about.
What is it? 2003 to 2008.
Yeah, 2003 to 2008.
And 2009 to.
Are there any aftermarket control systems that can control the BVT?
I know the factory system that they sell will do that. I believe, and again, I don't like to tell somebody unless I've done it myself, I believe the Gold Box will do it, and I think possibly the Holly EFI will do it as well. So again, no, I'm not, I don't want to sell you the wrong information.
The Gold Box has it.
The Gold Box will have it?
Actually, the guys from EFI stores are wandering around the spot.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool. So, yes, that'll answer your question.
Any other major differences between the 03 and 09? Or the first gen?
Variable about the 03, sorry, the 2003 through 2005, are you talking 5.7 or are you talking 5.7? Variable valve timing totally changed the engine. So in 2009 we call it the Eagle motor, and it's fully variable valve timing. Motor's totally improved. It's higher compression. The active, well, on a truck it's active intake. Yeah. On a car it's not. No, actually.
You'd know better than I do.
Yeah, and actually even weirder is the hybrid ones didn't have it. So in 2009 the motor gained a huge amount of horsepower. We went from 345 horsepower in a truck, 340 and 350 in the cars, to it's 395 horsepower in the trucks with an active intake, variable valve timing. We had the MBS systems fully functional. It's a lot better, more efficient. The engines got quieter, no more of that ticking that you constantly heard from the early 5.7s.
No way.
Yeah, go figure. The push rods got longer, the geometry changed a little bit. So, I mean, there's some things if you want to switch, mix and match. The older blocks are easier to work on. There's no variable valve timing, but the heads are better on the newer stuff.
I'm trying to put Eagle heads on a newer, or on 08 motor.
Okay, you can do that, but then if you start mixing and matching, you have to look at your pistons because you're going to have you're going to have like 11.5 to 12 to 1 compression. And if you want to do turbos, this is an either or.
This is a practice car for.
Okay, you're going to have to do a thicker head gasket or do some custom pistons or something. The Eagle heads are a fantastic head. They're cheap, and you can find them on just about any Rex 2009 and up 5.7. I have them on my 426 Charger. I have a 6.1 based 426 in my 2007 Charger, 600 horsepower, and it's running ported 5.7 heads, and it runs 11. Yeah, actually, they're
Are
great.
they the best head for the 5.7? Is there like as a stock application?
In a stock part, yes. There are aftermarket companies that have started, well, Tytech is, and they would be fantastic if you're, but they're pricey. They're up there, but I mean, $600 for a brand new set of Eagle heads. They're great. They flow like NASCAR level. You port them and they're 300.
300 plus. I mean,
Yeah.
I think I had Craig flow these, and I think they were in. I think these are ported with larger valves. I think I've got I think 208s and 575s in them, and those are in excess of 350, 355. So I mean, they're just crazy. I mean, you think of it this way: that's the same exact cylinder head that's on a pickup truck that's on your regular Hemi. Nothing spectacular.
Ram over there.
Right. They're just crazy.
Yeah,
What they do.
Eagle heads have to have the different inputs. You can't use the older car intake. You have to swap the intake at the same time, correct?
So actually, that's something Joe designs intakes, but the ports are a different size. So you can't put an Eagle intake on an older block because there's some interference. You have to kind of make something fit. So Joe's intake works fantastic for that. 6.1 intake like the one I have, they're getting really scarce, but they flow great. Joe's intake flows just like it, so if you can't find one of those, buy one of his. And no, so the fact of the matter is, I mean, the truck intake, even the older car intake, is a smaller port, so it's going to be a choke point. Even if you put the Eagle heads on it, you still got your choke point. So you want to take care of all of that. You're not going to benefit from any of that flow from those Eagle heads if you have the choke point in front of it. It'd be kind of like driving it with a plastic bag over the intake. It's not going to do anything. So,
now that the 426, you said you swapped that into a 2007
Yeah.
Charger. Now, is there anything? I guess is there anything else to consider when you're swapping different Hemis like non cars? Because you have all those electronics there.
well, it's a 6.1. It's a 4-inch bore, 4-inch stroke. So it's a stroker 6.1 motor. And I'm running, ignoring all the details, it's tuned, but it's a factory engine controller tuned by Diablo Sport. So there are a couple of means of tuning these applications with these newer engine controllers. Diablo Sport has been around for quite a while. HP Tuners has started to get in there, and you can tune a factory engine controller and do whatever you'd like with it. You can. I know people have been tuning the crit, even like the Hell Crate kit. You can get in there. I think you have to send the engine controller out to get modified by these places, but then you can alter it. The nice thing about doing that is you can say, for example, like that. It's not a factory engine. You're going to have different issues. There was a bit of tuning in that situation. Just like I'm going to put a cam in that at some point. 450-ish horsepower in a Dakota is fun, but let's go for 5. Why not? Everybody needs that. I drive that every day. I drove that through the winter. I threw snow tires on it with 300 pounds in the bed, and I drove it through the winter. So it works. You're gonna have to get used to. There's gonna be some stumbling here and there. You're gonna get frustrated with some stuff. But I drive it all over the place. So, yeah.
With a 0957 with a 6-speed, does that have DVT?
09 will have VVT, but it will not have multi-displacement. It won't have the 4-cylinder mode. So,
What do you do on the 6-speed?
on a 6-speed, it will not have
MBS.
Right. It won't have MBS, but it will still have VVT. Anybody else?
What do you recommend for a fuel pump on the old school 68 logo?
Carbureted or fuel injected?
Fuel injected.
So aftermarket or factory?
Big block now.
Okay. Yeah, Tank Sync makes a drop-in tank.
Aeromotive.
Yeah.
Just come out of the line.
Aeromotive and Tank Sync both have full factory-looking fuel tanks that you can actually drop in a pump that'll be regulated at 58 psi or whatever you want to set it at, and that way you're getting, the factory systems run at 58 psi, so it's there at the spec that will make a factory engine controller happy, and then it's less tuning for you.
The gentleman on the right.
Yes.
When you first did your swap with the 6.1, you had an external fuel card.
Yes.
How did that work out for you? Do you still use that?
I have an intake on that.
So you changed, but you weren't happy with it.
I wasn't happy with it, and it could be the same problem. The display motor that we have over Mopar, that same pump has gone out. So we're waiting for a pump to be brought here. But yeah, I put 2 different pumps in it, tried different locations and everything, and it just basically, a big thing was heat. I mean, it would run fine in the winter. Summertime, we'd get up around 90 degrees. It would start screaming and making noise, and the engine would lean out and run for long. Once I put the in-tank pump in it, it all went away.
So the reason they put the pumps in the tank was vapor lock, basically. Electric pumps don't like to suck fuel. So you have to put the tank, or put the pump as close to the tank as possible and as low as possible, which means it's basically, it's either right behind the differential or it's one of those sump tanks, and they get noisy and they get hot. If you put the pump inside the tank, it's cooled by the fuel itself. It doesn't burn up or anything like that, but it's actually cooled by the fuel, and it helps dampen the sound. So you don't hear that screeching, you don't hear the whining. Yeah, it's a lot quieter. It sounds like a factory system, and so it's kind of beneficial there. You're able to actually run the tank until it's practically empty, like use the full level of gauge of the fuel tank, versus the siphon systems. And an external pump where you really don't want to go too low, or else you're going to run into the risk of basically your pump running up or sucking in trash.
Yeah, I have the same problem with mine. I have an Aeromotive A1000 on my car. I've had it there for a long time. With the carburetor, it's quiet. When it's in the summertime with 58 pounds of fuel pressure on it, that thing is roasting. I want to put in-tank pumps actually on both cars. I haven't done it yet. But they're just that much quieter and nicer, neat, and you don't have to worry about them burning up. And I know a lot of times the external pumps, they just overheat and they burn up. And that's pretty much where you're at. So you're better off with that in general. If you're going to do a swap, try to figure it out on an in-tank, an in-tank pump. And I believe even in the Aeromotive, I think they make the ones for 66 and 67 B bodies now.
I think they do now.
Yeah, they didn't. No, they didn't. They didn't a couple years ago. No.
I think even Vitec is coming out.
That much.
I know they have. I don't know if they have for a Mopar.
Right, but I think Vitec is starting. Sorry. Vitec is actually looking at doing this sort of thing too. If you're going to do like a throttle body fuel injection, Vitec has a decent setup. They're all coming out there. Just look at the industry. I know Mopar numbers are usually the last ones to get listed for sale, but there are all sorts of options. We're working on. We just put fuel injection on the French Camaro, and you look at all the options out there, and you're like, wow. And then finally, I'm looking like, hey, look, they finally have for a charger. So there are options out there.
What's the strongest block? 5.7, 6.1, 6.4, as far as if you were going to build one?
That's it. 6.4. Yeah. All the big gas motor for the 6.4 liter truck engine, or that's actually the same motor in a truck that's in a Hellcat, and I believe even a Demon, same block.
So it's different than like 6.4 car.
Yes.
I've
To a point.
I've heard 2018 and up, the 6.4 car motor. Sorry, the 6.4 car motor is going to start using the BGE block because they discovered that it was strong enough, and why make 2 part numbers for a 6.4 block when they can use it for the 6.4 car, the 6.4 truck, and the 6.2. So that's all the same. It actually says BGE on the side of the engine block. So if you look at a 5.7, it's stamped in the side, it says 5.7. If you look at a 6.1, it says 6.1. These say BGE. In a truck motor, they're rated at like 10-to-1 compression. In a 392 SRT, it's 10.9 to 1, and a Hellcat, that's totally different. But they're out there. Those are the strongest blocks. Guys are making over 1,000 horsepower in Hellcat motors without any block issues. They're making 12 to 1,300 horsepower without having to stiffen them or anything.
Or did they supersede the part number on the old lifters and Hellcat lifters?
So the Hellcat lifter is basically just any non-MBS lifter. It's just they superseded everything. Those part numbers are all the same. It's just whoever the manufacturer was. It's just the first use of them was the Hellcat. So everybody calls them Hellcat lifters. It's really just a non-MBS lifter. Technically, the part number is the same as 8 of the lifters in an MBS application, and then there are 8 of the other. So.
Did you guys MBS delete your swap?
Mine was a 6.1, so I didn't have it, but
I had the one engine I had was a 5.7, and I actually stuck a 6.1 cam in the Coronet just as it's about a 20 horsepower boost or so. So that's one of the reasons. So it's all stock early 5.7, but yeah, in order to do that, you got to get rid of the MDS out of the engine. It's not hard to do. It's it's a matter of some lifters and I changed the cam. It's no big deal.
I just bought a 6.1.
Oh, there you go.
there you go.
What would each of you say was the greatest challenge you had with your project, and what's the best time-saving tip you have?
Making headers fit. So my truck is lowered, and unfortunately the company that made my headers didn't account for that, and they didn't account for the RFE transmission. They said, oh, they fit for a Dakota, and they do if you have the stock transmission, but I'm using an RFE from a Ram, which has a starter ear on either side, so I could either put a driver's side starter or a passenger side starter, and I actually had to sawzall off the one side of the starter ear off the transmission just to get the header to go through. And then because the truck is lower, the control arm was kind of occupying the same space, so there was a little bit of torches fit. But everybody knows that's kind of, that's life. There are companies making fantastic headers for these for these cars and trucks. TTI.
I got TTI. I use a set of TTIs on my car, and I actually have a set of Doug's on the Coronet. And for the money, I mean, the Doug's headers, I got them on eBay, just like everybody else. It's 400 and I got them on sale. It was like 450 or something like that. The tubes are a little on the smaller side. They're reaching 5/8 tubes, but for that, there's no problem with it. It's perfect size. They come with a D-shaped exhaust port, and they needed a little where the torsion bar comes through on the driver's side. It was one of those, okay, get a nice long fat chunk of pipe, lay it across where you mark it where the torsion bar runs through, give it a couple of whacks with a hammer and straightens it right out. But for the money, I couldn't pass them up, So they work good. I have no problems with them at all.
Junior's making those flanges.
Oh,
Mill finish.
Yeah, Mill. Yeah.
Finish.
Mill Finish Industries is making a header kit now. Make your own Gen 3 headers. All stainless steel. I think it's T304 stuff. It's real nice. He will, and I don't think he's got them yet, but he was talking about doing a mild steel setup as well. So that anybody that was a little bit more budget conscious and wanted to do a mild steel set instead of T304, you could get away with doing that. But again, there's options out there. They're slowly coming to fruition. It just takes time, unfortunately. So one of the biggest obstacles that I think I've ever had to do with one of these things is getting the damn bushing out of the back of the crankshaft for the NAG 1. That on a NAG 1, there's a bushing that goes in the back because the converter snout is smaller on a car than on the NAG 1s, which are in a car, than on a truck, which uses the 545. Well, they put a bushing in the back of there like a pilot bushing. It just takes up extra room. You want to talk about trying to get them things out of it, it's like ridiculous. But it's one of those deals where I had it down to a science. We made a piece of pipe that went in there, welded it to the bushing. I've known people that cut them in half. They take a grinder in there and slice them in half and knock the two pieces out. But they're one of the more pain in the neck things to get out, in order to be able to use it. If you're using a 727, you have to pull it out.
I drilled a hole, drilled and tapped it. It's a slight hammer to get it out.
Yeah, drill a tap. Again, everybody's got their own thing, but it was one of those. When you go to try to take it out of there, it's like, all right.
I've drilled one, Yeah, now I need it. So I've drilled them one side and then drilled them the other side until they just basically collapse in on themselves, and then you just pop the two chunks out with a pair of pliers. So, I mean, it's not the hardest thing. It's just one of those things that, you know, you go to put the transmission together and you go, oh, geez, I forgot that. So it's not a big deal. And you'd have to do that for both manual and automatic. Even with the RFE or an 8-speed, you're going to have to take that out.
I just did the old fill it with grease and whack it with a pipe, and it just popped it right out. The hydraulic method.
Yeah.
Shoved it with grease, found a pipe that fit in there, whacked it with a hammer, 2 or 3 hits. Now mine was a brand new crate engine, so there wasn't a lot of time on it, but it popped right out.